Welcome back to the Autoblog Podcast. I'm Greg Migliore. We've got an awesome show for you this week. Breaking news. As of today, Formula One has rejected the U.S. entry that is involving Andretti and General Motors. We have some opinions about that. Let's put it that way. And they are not mild. There's an electric Jeep Wagoneer. Looks pretty good, looks pretty sleek. We'll talk about that. Some updates to the Miata. General Motors is going back to hybrids. This is interesting. And there's a new Rivian coming up next month. We'll talk about what we've been driving, which includes an update of our long-term WRX. It's a lot of fun. I've been driving that through the snow. The electrified Genesis GV70 and the Kia EV9. We also will spend your money, and we have an update from an old friend who writes in with an update. So let's get right into it. Senior editor for All Things Electric, John Snyder, joins me today. How you doing, man?
I'm doing quite well. We just got dumped on with snow, which has made driving fun. So yeah, I'm doing great.
It is snowy. It is close to 40 degrees though. Just took the dog through a walk in the woods, and it was belty, as you say.
Yeah.
Cool.
I do like when it starts to get slushy and if you've still got like my road still has sort of a layer of compacted snow, almost ice underneath that slush, so you can really get the tail out and get some slush spraying up on the windows. It's fun.
It's a lot of fun, and we'll talk about that, about how I'm doing it in the WRX. Don't let me forget.
Yeah.
It's with the WRX, there's like 3 different ways you can approach the snow, like the actual snow, the slush, and then just the ice. And that's pretty good at all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So we're recording this on Wednesday about noonish, little afternoon. And this morning, Formula One has rejected Michael Andretti's bid to join the grid. They were looking to get in there in 2025 or 2026. And they basically have said, come talk to us again 4 years from now down the road. That's 2028, when GM, which supported the team, has an engine built. Now, they came out pretty in a very strongly worded statement, I would say. Formula One said that they think the entrance would not be competitive. They don't think the applicant would be a competitive participant. So they basically repeated themselves. And they think it would be, damaging to the prestige and standing of the championship. Now, okay, yeah. So I think that's, when this dropped, the story's on Autoblog. We have an opinion piece coming later today. So by the time the podcast drops, which usually is on Friday, all this stuff will be out there. But I really think this is arrogant and short-sighted by Formula One. I think, would the Andretti team have probably been competitive in its first year? Of course not. Expansion teams in any sport usually aren't. And I think, frankly, the better move would have been to get out of the grid after that new car launches in 26. Like, I don't really know if being on there in 25 would have been the best move, but I don't think it would have been this injustice, this indignant outrage, the way the FIA, the way Formula One has sort of responded. Now, look, everybody, life is hard. You get strong takes, maybe some of this was boilerplate language, but I mean, what are they thinking? Big picture? It's just that it really seemed like a missed opportunity. You want to expand in the richest market, but one of the largest TV markets. You don't think GM might have done something like, I don't know, buy a Super Bowl ad? It just seems very short-sighted and petty, almost. It almost seemed anti-American, the way they responded. So,
well, yeah, I mean, with more races and more hype, in America around F1, it would make sense to bring in some more American identity and let them compete. Just let them show what they can do. And like you said, yeah, they might suck. If they suck, they suck. But I mean, it's going to draw more interest to the program, and draw more fans. And it could make for interesting racing. I don't like the way FIA comes off in this. I mean, it's sort of on brand for them, but and maybe it's just me from my American standpoint, but still, I just think it would be good for the sport.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, I'm not saying, hey, give us a team because you want TV ratings. Like, I get that. But I do think this was an opportunity for the sport to grow globally, and obviously a very, great opportunity here in this market. And they're also totally assuming that the Andretti team was going to get out there and suck. Like, to me, they're getting way ahead of it.
Yeah.
Sports and F1 in particular is littered with all sorts of different, startups that have done well. So, I mean, they do lay that out in their case. They're like, well, historically, new manufacturers don't do well at first. Fair, but not always. Again, it seemed very short-sighted, parochial, petty. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. those are good words for it.
So this would have taken F1 from 10 teams to 11. They did pass sort of an initial technical check earlier. This always did seem, frankly, a little shaky. That was just my read off, right? Even when they announced it. But it seemed like things were progressing. So the fact that they, Formula One, the FIA has come out so strongly today, to me, I think it is a slap in the face. And I think it's frustrating, I mean, I'm not saying I would have rooted for Andretti, but it's a common sense thing. If you're trying to grow your sport and grow the branding. And I think they're leaping, hurtling to conclusions to make their argument, which it sounds like they said this wasn't involving the other teams. Yeah, right. Yeah, real. That's worth the paper this thing is printed on. So,
Well, it just, if 2028 comes around and Andretti does join then with, GM powertrain, this makes me more likely to root for them and hope to dominate and put them in their place just as a slap back on this, but
yeah, no, I'm with you there. There's a lot of drivers I like. I'm half Italian, so I like Ferrari. Kind of like Alfa Romeo a little bit. But I mean, you want to talk about a team that struggled for quite a while. It just really seemed like they got selective here about assuming things weren't going to go well. So yeah. I mean, we'll say kind of a frustrating day. Twitter/X is just broken right now. If you're on it, looking at the outrage from different parts of the racing community, I mean, they have every right to not let whoever they want into their club, if you will. It reminds me a little bit of, I'm a pretty big football fan, and there's conference expansion, and there's all these schools you would not think of are now in other conferences. The University of Washington is going to play in the Big Ten, which kind of makes my head explode, right?
And Oregon, which I'm excited about both those teams. I
Me too, actually.
Watching them and actually really like both those teams, so it'll be fun to see it. But yeah, I see what you're referring to there. But I think it's a good thing,
Yeah. For what I'm also saying here too is I think Washington and Oregon and UCLA and USC joining the Big Ten is a great thing. I think it's really good for the conference as a Big Ten grad, and I think that's sort of what could have happened here with, Formula One,
Yeah.
So it goes. All right. So head over to Autoblog. By the time, again, you're listening to this, we'll have some, opinions up there. A road test, Zach Palmer has thoughts. Go check those out over the weekend. All right. So let's transition over to some sheet metal. The electric Wagoneer just sort of parachuted out of the sky earlier this week. Looks pretty good. A little different than I thought it would look. It's pretty sleek. It honestly looks a little bit like a like a Chevy Blazer or even a Lexus.
Yeah,
different than I thought it would.
Definitely does have that Blazer vibe. It looks more Grand Cherokee than Wagoneer, which is good.
Yeah,
I think this looks a lot better. Yeah, I think it actually looks really good. It does have that sort of those blazer muscles, those bulging fenders and whatnot. And I really like that, what you can see of the face, that front lighting. Um, looks really slick, but it still looks, the grill looks like maybe a little bit small for a Jeep, maybe a little bit understated. But I'll wait until I see it in the flesh. But I think, from the profile and these interior shots, it looks really nice. I'm really pleased with how this looks.
Yeah, the interior I think is could be something very impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Jeep has done a pretty good job with their interiors in recent years. So, in some ways, they've been more consistent than the exteriors, where we've been, you know, they've been a more polarizing design, I think, in the last probably decade or so than perhaps Jeeps used to be. So,
Yeah.
this one's aggressive. I could see a lot of people perhaps not liking it. It's a little tough. I know we say this all the time because of the press photos, but it's like a
Yeah.
dark Jeep they showed. So cliche, but I think I kind of need to see it in real life first. But
It's definitely a little more street looking than sort of the off road
mhm,
vibe that a lot of the other Jeeps give off, regardless
yes,
of how off roady they are.
it looks fast.
Yeah,
So as opposed to like off-road capable, but perhaps it'll be both. 600 horsepower.
yeah,
Um,
it'll be fun, that's for sure.
yeah, no, this is going to be cool. And as the I always have liked Jeep massagers. They're always quite good. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see.
And I like the Macintosh audio system.
Mm,
You can sort of see that on display. They've got the little equalizer needle display sort of things going on in there. You can see it from sort of a distance. So yeah, it's sticking with the sort of more upscale Jeep has gone, especially with like the Wagoneer name, um, in terms of interiors. So it'll continue with that route too. But yeah, um, definitely looks like a hoot.
all right, let's talk Miata. The MX-5 gets a lot of updates. It's interesting because I can see both of these, especially the Miata, being shown at the Chicago Auto Show, which apparently they won't be, as auto shows have continued to decline. I was at a auto show party celebrating the Miata's reveal. I forget what anniversary it was, but it was 10, 15 years ago. So do the math. And the original Miata was shown at the Chicago Auto Show way back in whatever that was, late 80s, early 90s. So, and this is the exact kind of thing you would show there, I think, is like a cool car with some updates. And this is not a new generation, but it's an update of this current generation, the ND as we call it. Zach Palmer calls it the ND3, which I think is a pretty good way to put it out there in his write-up, which you can check out on there. Some chassis updates, um, different things with the like stability control, a lot of under the skin stuff here. Tweak the brakes a little bit, try to again make the car handle better.
Mhm.
There's some styling changes, but I don't really see them from the pictures. Apparently, there's new LED lights. We'll see. I haven't driven the Miata in probably 2 years at least.
Yeah, it's been a while, but man, if they can make it even better driving, I always worry about when an automaker messes with a good thing, but Mazda tends to really do a really good job of incrementally improving their driving dynamics of their vehicles. And yeah, so Mazda says it's going to have smoother steering with a more defined on center feeling, which I don't mind that. And then in Mazda's words, greater precision as the front tires are loaded up under hard cornering. Sounds perfect for a little roadster. That we already sort of appreciate its handling. Um, yeah, if you can improve things incrementally here and there, yeah, do it. I know Mazda's always sort of followed a sort of Graham strategy where they look closely at the details to see what they can improve bit by bit, where they can take out some weight, where they can improve the handling. And so I think these little improvements might not strike you after just coming out of the pre-refresh, but if you go back to the beginning of the generation or last generation, if you could do like a vertical tasting of Miatas, I'm sure it would come through in that sort of drive.
Yeah, can't wait to drive this one. Hopefully get through our fleet here just in time for summer when some of the slush and snow melts. So it'll be a fun one.
It will be.
All right. So it was earnings season last week and this week, and GM announced their earnings. They made money. Too long, don't read, but not as much as they did before. And one of the things, though, that they mentioned that caught our attention is CEO Mary Barra mentioned that they will begin investing in hybrids again, which is something that they moved away from as they went all in on the all-electric field. I think you kind of got to pick your battles, and things like the Chevy Volt, went by the wayside. But Barra says that a plug-in hybrid, perhaps several, are in the offer, are going to be in the hopper coming up. And I think this is a pretty good move. I think it's a good interim play. And I think they're also, definitely hedging their bets in the event of, some upheaval in the political and economic spaces.
For sure. Yeah, there's definitely some hedging going on. Especially with some of the difficulty they've had just producing EVs.
Yeah.
Automakers in general, have been sort of complaining. And dealers have been complaining too. I don't know if that's the fault of just consumers don't want EVs or dealers just aren't trying hard enough to sell them, aren't educating themselves on the product enough. I don't know. But I think a plug-in hybrid, regardless of the motivations behind putting out more plug-in hybrids, I think it's a good thing if it means you'll sell more of those than and fewer pure internal combustion vehicles. The more miles, and this is what Toyota's been saying all along in their EV/hybrid strategy, the more miles you can get out there in the world on electric power, the better, whether it's coming from a hybrid's battery or an EV. If you're going to get 5 people into plug-in hybrids where you'd only get 1 into an EV, it's and you could still maybe get that 1 into an EV. That makes a lot more sense just from an emissions and fleet standpoint, and decarbonization. So I think, regardless of what their motive is behind it, I think it's a good move overall.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking at this. There's a story in the Free Press about this, Detroit Free Press, with Bob Lutz, Maximum Bob, unveiling the original Volt concept. He's still kicking. He had his 90th birthday, I think, over the summer, and it showed up on some social feeds, and a lot of people, famous car people, were at it. And here he is back in 2007 unveiling it, looking rather dapper. Mm-hmm. And I was at that reveal. I remember. I was, yeah, man, I remember that. It was, I ended up writing about the actual reveal of the production Volt, which was in the fall of 2008. So a year plus later. And a lot of people said, wow, boy, this really kind of lost its mojo en route to production. Because you look at this concept, and yeah, it's got 17 years old. I can't believe that. But then you look at what the Volt kind of became, and it was, definitely a little more homely, if you will. So it just was, the Volt concept was cool, and you think they could bring back the Volt? The only bad part of it would be confusing with the Bolt. It's the only downside to it. But a Volt plug-in hybrid.
We don't want to go through that all over again. But I think I don't know if they bring back the Volt. in the format that it was. I think
Yeah.
you just have to build something a little bigger now. But um, I mean, I remember when the Volt went away and how badly we lamented it. We loved that thing, and
Yeah.
we're sad to see it go. And yes, they were moving on to their BEV strategy, but it was sad to see them leave such a great car like the Volt behind when they were pioneers in plug-in hybrid technology. So I'm glad to see GM stepping back into that for sure. They were one of the first to do it. They did it really well, and they've had a ton of experience since then with electrification in general. So yeah, I will be looking forward to driving a plug-in hybrid. I don't know, anything. Then the new Camaro might be a good candidate for it.
Yeah, I think lost in some of the noise that surrounds electric vehicles or staying only gas is the vast sort of different options that lie in between, from hybrids to plug-in hybrids, um, that can be very useful for a lot of different people. I drove the Prius. It was about 6 weeks ago now, I guess. Really enjoyed it. I can see how that can work for a lot of different people. And um, I spent my entire holiday vacation basically in electrics, which was great. Loved it. Had some challenges with the charging, which is to be expected. But I can see how some people, like, we all have only so much, like, the situations that we try and navigate through life. And we all have probably just so much bandwidth for problem solving and troubleshooting. And perhaps your car isn't something you have time to, like, troubleshoot. You just want to, like, gas it up, then maybe charge it up, and then not think about it for a week. So that's where a hybrid can be brilliant. So I think the move would probably be for them not to rebuild the Bolt, but make a Blazer hybrid or Equinox hybrid or Camaro hybrid, um,
Yeah.
something like that.
It's also plug-in hybrids are a better solution for a lot of single car households too.
Yeah.
They need something that's going to do all the roles, that they can be efficient around town and then drive across the country on a long road trip to go see the family or whatever, without having to really worry about it. Someone like me, my household, we have a gas car. My second car would be an EV, and probably will be here soon. We've talked about that previously. I think the last time I was on the podcast, we talked a bit about that. But yeah, if it were just a single person or a one car household, especially if you're sort of rural, it might be tough to get by on an EV. I mean, probably not as tough as you think, but definitely tough enough that it make you think twice about buying one.
Yeah. No, it's tricky. And then there's also, I think you face, not just with EVs, like understanding charging and things like that, which, even for us as car journalists, it takes a little bit to figure out, I don't want to go to this level 2 charger and then think I'm going to get, fast charging capability. Like, there's an educational curve. And with hybrids, it's a little bit the same way, because I think one of the challenges about the old Volt is I don't think people necessarily used it the right way. Like, they'd let it run down and then forget about it. Or, and this is perhaps the case for plug-in hybrids writ large, is, people just didn't really use them exactly the right way, which is more on the manufacturers to sort of educate, if you will.
Yeah.
But there's a trickiness, and that's where you see things like, again, the Prius. You could get a regular hybrid, or go with the Prime, which gives you like 30 miles or so or more of electric range, plug in, and you just pick which kind of Prius do you want. And I think that'd be a great model for General Motors to follow.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, I feel like, end up using their plug-in hybrids just as regular hybrids. They don't plug them in as often as they'd like. Maybe the garage is full. Maybe it's just cold and they don't want to deal with the unraveling the charging cable, or they live in an apartment that don't have a good spot to plug it in, that sort of thing.
I found when I would be driving the different Jeep 4xEs that I could really get some efficiency out of those.
Hmm.
I don't have a charger, but I could sometimes use a trickle charger, or I would go to like the mall where there'd be like a bank of chargers.
Hmm.
You're at the mall for a few hours, you get something to eat. I mean, you're not going to necessarily top yourself off, but it's just all that feeds into it. And next thing you know, you're not even filling the Jeep up hardly
Yeah.
ever. So,
And that's another benefit about having the actual plug rather than a regular hybrid. Lots of times you get premium parking spots.
mhm.
Lots of times they'll
Oh
have
yeah,
EV spots right by the door. You can
yeah.
just plug in and there you are. You're taking advantage of the electricity and taking advantage of the excellent parking.
I forget where I was, but I had a hybrid, an all electric car, and I think I had just turned the EV in, and something else was coming from the press fleet, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, look at these rows of like free chargers, and we had to go all the way up to the top of this parking structure, and I'm like, wow, that's what was I thinking here? So it goes. All right. So staying with EVs, let's talk about what appears to be the RS2. Uh, this is a smaller SUV. We're going to get a worldwide product launch, as our headline says, coming out on March 7th. So about 6 weeks from now. Rivian currently has two vehicles, the R1S and the R1T. They're both fairly good-sized vehicles, the truck and the SUV, both quite interesting to drive. We know very little about what this thing will be. Um, but the CEO, RJ Scaringe, has been teasing this on social media for a while. So you can see those out there. And then the most recent kind of teaser is kind of a squared off, you know, car, truck, SUV thing. It's an SUV with, wrapping over it. It looks like he's talking to the designer. So, um, this will be interesting. I think they're going to do it in at the South Coast Theater. It sounds like Laguna Beach. So if you're in the area, sounds like that's what's going on.
Yeah, I would love to see Rivian come out with more products. Man, I have been seeing Rivians all over
Yep.
the place, not just here in Michigan. When I travel anywhere in the United States, I see them everywhere. And staying in Arizona with my sister-in-law and brother-in-law. My brother-in-law was like, "What do you think of this Rivian company?" I'm like, "Oh, you're starting to see those too, huh?" And sure enough, we went driving around. There's Rivians at the Starbucks, Rivians at the movie theater. Yeah, it's pretty cool to see. Um, but uh, but yeah, I'll be excited to see more products, especially with a little bit lower price tags. Um, Seeing as there's an R2 coming out as an SUV, probably I don't know, could be the R2S would make sense.
Mhm.
Um, Boy, I sure hope they come out with an R2T.
Mhm.
that,
Oh man,
that would be neat.
that's right into the segment where it's red hot. I
Yeah,
imagine the R1T isn't huge. I would
no,
say it's not like a mid-sized truck, but I would say it's like in between a Silverado and a Colorado without
yeah,
getting out the rulers, if you will, but just from a rough silhouette and also like mission, what,
mhm,
that the R1T does. It kind of slots right in there, which to me is the perfect size. It's a really,
yeah,
really interesting truck. Um, I'm excited for this. I think this is going to be cool.
I do too. Yeah, looking forward to seeing it. I'm looking forward to seeing how much they change the styling from the R1S. I imagine that they won't just make a smaller carbon copy, even though from this sort of photo of it under wraps, it does kind of look like that same boxy shape very much. I hope they give it enough of its own identity that the R1S owners still feel like they've got something special.
Cool. All right, so come back to us on March 7th. We'll have the story. Should be cool. I think
Hmm.
Rivians have been among the more interesting vehicles I've driven in the last couple of years. They really stand out. Uh, just that, like, sometimes you drive a cool car and you don't even remember it, which sounds cliche, but it's also like the job. You take notes, you're on to the next one. But I can honestly remember, like, vividly the R1T and the R1S both times, and they're pretty cool. I think.
Heck, I remember the first time seeing one in on the road. It was a prototype. I live kind of right down the road from their headquarters.
Yeah.
And so coming in and out of Ann Arbor every once in a while, I'd see an R1T prototype go by, and yeah, that stuck with me. And I still point them out, even when I start seeing multiple in a day in places that aren't Michigan. I'm still pointing them out because they're cool.
So, hot take, right now their 2-vehicle lineup is better than Tesla's like 4 or 5 vehicle lineup. Would you agree or disagree?
I don't think they've got enough of the bases covered. When they have something affordable, then
fair.
Then let's talk.
Fair. Yeah, it's a good way to put it. The point I'm trying to make, perhaps a straw man argument here, is that you got a truck, you got an SUV. People like those, and they're more expensive than small sedans.
True.
And if you took the badge off, what do you think most Americans would rather drive? A boxy crossover or a small crossover or a small sedan? So
yeah,
just, I don't know. It's interesting. And like you, I see a lot of them and people ask me about them. They're almost like the Tesla alternative. Like, yeah, I've thought about electrics. I've thought about Tesla. I don't know how I feel about what their CEO says and does and everything he's doing these days. But this Rivian company, they've got this boxy SUV. It looks kind of cool. So that's literally the thought process people say to me. And then they say something like, well, I don't know if I drive enough to spend, whatever the sticker price is on like an entry level one, which is not cheap. It's like 60, 70. So
yeah.
All right. So that's Rivian. Let's talk about Kia and the EV9, which you drove out in California. I drove it in Metro Detroit about a month ago. Well, what did you think?
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
It translates really well from the Palisade in terms of the what it serves. It's a practical 3-row SUV that isn't necessarily off-roady, and is actually comfortable in all 3 rows. But it also happens to be, a very quick, high mileage EV, with some really neat styling. And then they took a lot of things, a lot of thinking, I think, from like the Kia Carnival, with those reclining seats. I know you can get those in like the EV6 and Hyundai i5, but to have those in the second row, captain's chairs, and have those really cozy VIP lounge seats is what they were calling the Carnival. Here they call them relaxing comfort seats. That's a really nice thing. It's sort of like almost like a minivan with doors that don't slide open, and maybe a little taller. Definitely feels spacious, like a minivan on the inside. The third row, not quite as wide as a minivan's third row. It only seats 2 in the third row, but boy, you've got tons of headroom, tons of leg room. I was able to, I set the driver's seat in my driving position. I'm 6 foot tall for reference. Set the second row seat in a comfortable position behind that, and then was able to get in the third row and feel very comfortable behind that. So that was really cool. Lots of neat little features, like in the upper trims, there's a little drawer that pulls out from the rear of the center console that can, it's pull it out. It's like a shelf, and then you push that top part back, and then it's like this nice little cubby. That'd be a great place to stash things that I wish we had that in our Palisade, where we could put wipes and fruit snacks, things for the kids that they're always asking for. But yeah, just also, really good to drive. I only drove the top GT line, which is really quick. It definitely, surprisingly quick for how big it is. A lot of the useful tech from the other Hyundai Kia models, the safety tech, the rear view, digital rear view camera, which is great if you're going to load it up all the way with cargo and kids. Um, the blind spot monitor, camera view, which is also really helpful. Things like that. No like AR head-up display, so a little bit fewer gimmicks. They do still have a fingerprint sensor that you can use to load up your driver profile if you've got different people driving it, or as a way, if you put it on valet mode and want to take it off valet mode, you can use your fingerprint to take it off of valet mode, that sort of thing. Phone is key. The digital key, the latest version of that, where you can text someone a key if like, hey, I need you to stop by my work and pick up the car and take it in. Whatever. Here, I'm going to text you the key, and then you can revoke it at any time. So lots of little convenient things like that. Very well thought out. I think it looks cool too. Looks different. Kind of boxy, which I like. Surprisingly aerodynamic for how boxy it is. But yeah, I liked it quite a bit. It's they could have gone cheaper with it, but then they wouldn't have left in all the standard content that they have. They just pack this in the base models. They have lots of good safety and convenience content in it, and I don't think they want to water that down. So it does, start a little higher, but still, it's compared to like the R1S or the Model X or the Mercedes EQS SUV. It's quite the bargain, and it still feels quite premium.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's creative. I think the design is very it's cool, for lack of a better way to put it. It definitely gets that kind of boxiness, that element to make people feel like they're driving something special and different. All the metrics, the range, line up. And I like the interior. I thought the interior, you did a very good job of explaining all the different features. I just thought it was a nice place to spend time too.
Yeah.
Like the materials were cool. It was pretty big in there. And just having a mainstream 3-row SUV that's all electric, I think, is a major achievement.
Yeah, and they all from the base level on up have that synthetic leather interior, which is very nice. Yeah, definitely a good place to spend time, especially if you can turn on the massaging seat. I think you can only get the massaging seat in the driver's seat, but you can get heated and ventilated second row. Yeah, if you're waiting on a charge, and it's got the 800 volt architecture, so it also charges very quickly. 10 to 80% in 24 minutes on the big battery models. So 24 minutes, perfect amount of time to turn on the heated seat, recline it, pull your lunch out of that little drawer and eat it, and then get back on your way.
Yeah, I can't wait to spend more time in this, especially given the pure range. It'd be a good summer road trip vehicle because you can definitely plan ahead to where you might be within reason. So it's obviously can charge quickly. Yeah, would you consider that Kia and Hyundai had never really made 3-row SUVs? Not only have they made them, you own one, they are making electric ones. That's remarkable.
Yeah, for sure. And it's something I would consider replacing the Palisade with. If it would be my wife's daily driver, and she uses it to get up north quite a bit. So with full of kids and dogs, so waiting at the charger is not an ideal situation in that case. But if you have 304 miles of range, I think it is. Our cottage 4 hours away is 250 miles. But that's all highway driving, and that'd be good weather. you may have to stop once along the way just to be safe, which wouldn't be too bad. We usually do that anyway on our way up to stop and
that's true.
get everyone something to eat, or to pick up things that we don't have at the cottage, some groceries or whatnot.
That's where go ahead.
But I would rather have my EV be my smaller get around town car, mostly. But if if I was going to do a 2 EV household, it'd be perfect.
Yeah, well, yeah, there you go. You could go all EV, 2 EV household. I think that's where the beauty of like the route you described, where like where you're going, where like your charger is, where your backup charger is, there might be one at say a grocery store. Like that's where a large EV can be very beneficial because it's you're very familiar with the terrain. So
yeah, it would definitely work for 99% of what we need to do with it, and not be too much of a pain.
All right. Well, I guess Hyundai Motor Co. is really getting into EVs, obviously, as we all know. So let's talk about another one. This is the electrified Genesis G70.
GV70.
GV70, yeah. I actually drove this, it was almost a year ago now. I can't believe it. But you drove it more recently. So what did you think?
Yeah, it's in my driveway right now. I've been driving it in all this snow, and been using the snow mode, which is great.
It is.
It keeps it really stable. You can put it in something else, and it'll play a little bit, and then the traction control will kick in. But with the snow mode and distributing the power between the front and rear axles, it just does a very good job of keeping things nice and stable. But really nice looking vehicle, really attractive. When I drop the kids off at school, people are commenting, asking, "What is that? Is that it's a Genesis." Oh yeah, I forgot that's a thing. Is it electric? Yeah, but there's a gas one too. But yeah, it looks cool. Very comfortable inside. Take the Kia EV9 and elevate that a little bit with some nice materials, more detail in the design, and very comfortable. The second row, it's a little smaller than I expected it to be, with a front-facing child seat behind me. My daughter is, kicking the seats for sure. If she's wearing boots, her feet are getting stuck, so I'm always moving my seat up a little bit to accommodate for her.
Parenthood.
Yeah, but you take a little of that, but you get a little more in cargo room. There's a really nice big flat load floor. Put a lot of stuff in there, pretty deep. I loaded it up with groceries. It was pretty great. And then, it's again, this is another one that's surprisingly quick. You can get on put it in sport mode, put on the gas, or not the gas, the accelerator. Got to get used to not calling it the gas. And man, this thing just shoots off. My kids kept asking me to do it again and again. If you're doing it through a corner, you get a little wheel spin. Not too much, it stays stable, but it just feels really fun. So smooth and quiet, just really, really, really nice. It took me a while to find the charging port on it. It's hidden behind part of the panel where the grill would be, and it blends in perfectly. You're looking for the cutout like you would like a fuel flap on a normal car, or where the charge port is on most EVs, and this is tucked up, completely blended into the grill. So it took a little bit to find that. And then I had the thing where I went out to take the kids to school, and I couldn't get the charger to unplug. I had to go in through the menu, and it was set on And no matter what I did with unlocking the car, turning it on, nothing would get to release. You go into the menu and turn off the thing that says locked while charging, and then
Interesting.
yeah.
Did
And
you hear
then,
about my story with the GV60?
yeah, yep.
Yeah, same thing.
And that, wasted like 10 minutes of my morning just fooling around trying to do that while getting the kids in the car and like just trying to get out of there, having to go into the menu. But once it's turned off, I A, know how to do it, and B, never have to do it again. So,
Yeah. Man, I don't know why they have that feature. It is infuriating. Did you know it was turned on like initially, or did you know it engaged?
no, it
Yeah,
was
I didn't either.
that's just how it was set from the previous, when they dropped it off. So I turned it off, and it stays off once you
Yeah.
turn it off until you turn it back on again. I mean, most EVs, you just hit the unlock button and it unlocks
Yes.
it, which that makes sense to me. That makes perfect sense. But
Super frustrating. It was a real pain. And it seems to happen with across the Hyundai Motor Co.
yeah,
EVs.
yeah. But I mean, that and finding the charge for it were two little, beginner problems that, once I knew about them, it won't be a problem again. And other than that, yeah, really love driving it. Really love driving it. It feels very executive, very luxurious. It's nice. It's nice. The kids love it too. Wally loves having, heated seats in the back too.
Everybody, kids always love the heated seats. They really
Yeah.
do. It's my son liked the massaging seats in different cars too.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, you got to get in your car seat. You can't just sit there getting a hot stone massage while we ride around. Like, this isn't how this works, man. But yeah.
Nope. Yeah, not for a couple more years anyway, until you're out of that booster.
Indeed.
Yeah, Wally just got out of his booster this past summer, which is
it's a milestone.
Been great for him because he gets to enjoy the luxuries of the car, and great for us because we don't have to tote a booster seat around. And now Wally can sit in whatever seat he wants without having to drag that seat from the second row to the third row or whatever.
Yeah, it's a good move. Yeah, you're getting old, man. You're getting old.
Yeah, it's not so bad.
All right, so I guess I should talk about the WRX. That's what I'm still driving.
Can't wait to hear about it, man.
It is. So I have a long-term update. It went up again on Friday. So if you're listening to this on the weekend, the story went up. Ours is bright orange. It's definitely a lot of fun to drive. I've talked about this a couple times now on the show, and it's I think it sort of lives up to the hype and the mission, the legend of what it should be, if you will. It's it's intense. That's the word I'm looking for. And it's been intense for the last few weeks. It's just been an absolute tractor through the snow. That's been great. It's fun, like driving in the snow with a stick shift too, because it's so rare. Drop it in second gear and fishtail around corners. The only rough thing is it's a pretty low to the ground car. So you can plow through the snow, you can plow over the top of the snow, but it's really rough when like you're kind of sinking into the slush, and then like literally the slush is going around the car because it's so low. Definitely, I was like, am I going to high side this thing on some of these different slush mountains? So there's that. Boxer 4, the turbo, it's everything, you remember, it's coarse as hell. It's the whole thing is really loud.
Yeah.
For all I was convinced I was getting a headache from driving the car. I think I just have a headache, which is a different set of issues. But it's been a lot of fun, man. And I've always kind of preferred the WRX to the STI. I feel like the STI is just a little bit too much for me, for more than just like driving it for a morning. So I've been really liking it.
Agreed. I feel the same way about the WRX and the STI. I can't wait to get in this one. I haven't driven this one yet.
You're a WRX owner formerly.
Yeah, I had my 04 WRX that I bought new. I had it for over a decade, well over a decade. And man, I miss that car so much. Mostly because of how fun it was to drive in the snow. And I think about, I could get another WRX someday and have this, but it wouldn't be the same, with all the new modern stability tech and stuff. Maybe it wouldn't, be so rambunctious in the snow as the other one. But then I drove an Outback a couple weeks ago in the snow, and it was, that thing came to life as soon as the pavement got slippery, in a really good way. So even these modern Subarus are still fun in the snow. It's great to hear. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to driving the new one. This is the first time in a while that I've sort of considered a modern, a contemporary WRX as something I might prefer to that first gen. So yeah, looking forward to getting in it, and it's nice that it's orange. People can see it in the snow.
Oh man, it's bright orange. People see it coming. And I think that's a good thing. The other option was blue, which had that very Subaru blue.
Yeah, rally blue.
But honestly, I'm glad we got the orange. I don't know. I have no regrets on that.
Yeah, I feel like, the blue is very common. And man, I wish they'd bring back that yellow they used to have. That was great. Maybe they have, and I just missed it. But they used to have that really fun bright yellow on the WRX back in the day. Sort of like the Rivian yellow on the
Rivian yellow is something.
Yeah, it's a similar yellow to that. I liked that quite a bit, but I went with the blue, just because it was the Subaru thing to do, the very WRX thing to do.
Okay. Yeah, I was looking back at my sort of history with the WRX. We had a long-termer. You might remember this. I think you might have been freelancing here at the time. A long-termer back at like 15-ish.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good one. We put a fair amount of miles on it. Got rear-ended on 696. Took some hits. It had those gold Sparco wheels.
Yeah,
we still have those wheels. Did you know that?
I do. Well, we ended up putting those on the our long-term Forester a couple years ago, because they happened to fit.
They barely fit. They looked good though. That was a great car. And when I was actually at Auto Week, we had an STI, which was my first sort of indoctrination into like what an STI, what a WRX could be.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing would rip your head off. That was really something.
It was an STI. The thing that I didn't like about it was, you would get tired.
Yeah.
Over a long drive. I drove one down to Hocking Hills a few years ago, and just those 3-4 hours of driving on the highway, that even in the highest gear, it's still droning at fairly high RPMs, and it's loud, and it's a lot of vibration, and it's like when you're boating, you just get tired just from the sound and the vibration of it, and the STI is the same way. Really fun on a track though. Really fun on a track, or on a dirt track too. If you can get it sort of off. I've driven some on I think 2011. Took one on. They built this big mud track on the side of this hill for us, and got to drive that around. That was pretty cool. And like you said, good in the snow. I did the Subaru winter driving experience a few years back.
Oh, cool.
In the WRX, the STI, and the BRZ, all with studded tires on them out on this frozen lake. I still think the WRX was the best. I mean, the BRZ was really fun on studded tires on the ice. But the WRX was still just, it's just so well balanced. It's just, it just takes the best of all the worlds, and just puts it there in front of you, and doesn't, sap your energy from you in the process.
Now, they said over a year ago, that they were not going to develop an STI again. So we'll see if perhaps down the road that somehow changes. But for now, the WRX, you could go with like the GT or the TR, which news editor Joel Stocksdale drove in Sicily. So
and then there are the companies like ProDrive that Byron Renton drove their basically what would be an STI. And you can probably buy a WRX and mod it yourself with enough cash and turn it into basically an STI. But I think the package that it is, as it stands, is just very sort of a sweet spot.
You can definitely, to your point, turn up the wick on a WRX and get pretty close to perhaps what an STI would be in this day and age. To me, the intensity of the STI was just the way all of the elements of it, from like the seats to the way the transmission, the shifts were tight, the clutch was super heavy, which of course it is in the Rex. The huge wing, like it was just all of it made driving it like a total workout. Whereas the Rex, it's a workout. You're tired. It's not comfortable, but you can breathe a little bit,
Yeah. It's still a little rough around the edges. I haven't, driven this one yet, but if it's anything like previous ones, you're gonna get some thrash through the transmission, and
that's a good way to put it. Some thrash.
Yeah. But it's all good fun. It's nothing too extreme.
All right, so let's have some good fun and spend some money. That's podcast@autoblog.com. We'd love to answer your questions. If you have a mailbag question, let's do that too. So first, an update from Sean in Fort Collins, Colorado. Greg, this is for you and Zach. After listening to my questions about the LC500, I ordered a 2024 coupe today. I went with the Cloudburst Gray with a black red interior. That sounds great. Dynamic handling pack, as well as the heads-up display. Mark Levinson audio, dash cam. He went with every box except the dog first aid kit. Nothing against dogs, I just don't have one. So good purchase. Glad to hear we can help you out. All right, and then we have a new question. So let's get into that. A friend of Autoblog drives a Cadillac XTS that was bought used for $25,000. Had it for years, but it's time to go. Needs that same kind of car for the nature of his job. Basically, he says there's no big Cadillac sedans anymore, which is true. He drove the XT6, which is the crossover, found it boring, wants to stick with the sedan. He drove the CT5 and said it was too small. The writer is an executive at a large company in the Midwest. The parking place is highly visible, which means having a domestic car would be better for public relations, is basically the question put for us. So what we're trying to do is find a large domestic sedan or something that I guess, could be in place of that.
Yeah, it flies a little under the radar compared to the Germans.
Yeah, so basically if you rolled up in a 7 Series, that might raise some eyebrows. So I went hard on the CT5 because I think that's the closest thing you could get.
Yeah.
A couple other options here, but I don't want to take all the options because there's only like 2 or 3. What do you think?
Well, I mentioned the Volvo S90. I like that. It's already not already. It's starting to feel pretty old. It needs an update. But I mean, if you're buying used, it's certainly fine. I quite like the S90 actually. Let's see. There's the Genesis G80 or G90. A little bit flying under the radar, not as flashy. So there's that. Mentioned he drove the XT6, found it boring, and wants to stick with a sedan. Although, if you did want to dabble back into crossover area, the Lincoln Aviator would be a good.
That's a really good one.
A sort of fun alternative to the XT6. And finally, if you want to go electric and American and big sedan, Tesla Model S.
That's true. Yeah.
There's a ton of them out there. You get a ton of range. No one's gonna look funny at you for not buying something made in America when you live in the Midwest. I mean, that's a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone everywhere realizes that, but especially like here in Michigan, that's a thing. You feel really sort of out of place in certain places driving a Ford vehicle. Like up north, we're up north in the Palisade. Everything else is domestic. We are the only foreign car in the parking lot of the Tom's Grocery.
Yeah, I had that same experience in the Hyundai Palisade myself when we had the long termer. So,
but a Tesla,
it's true.
Made right here in the darn U.S. of A. and liked by people of all stripes. So,
I think, well, a little bit of an update. Before we had a chance to even read this on the air, the writer went out and got an XT6. So we now know the answer to the question, which, that's, I think the thing about a Cadillac is it is a Cadillac, and that definitely carries a certain gravitas. I think a CT6 would have been great. The CT5 is what I would have done, frankly, if you want to go sedan. You can still get all-wheel drive. It's not as big as, perhaps this like the CT6, which nominally competed with the 7 Series. Mm-hmm. You do get, like, especially in a domestic leaning area, but really anywhere, Cadillac does still have that brand halo. So I think that'll work. I think the XT6 is, going to do the job just fine. Outside of the sedan segment, to your point, the Lincolns are really good. I think that would have worked. A used Continental was one other option that kind of came to mind. And I think they're hard to find, but that's a great car too. It was only briefly in the press fleet. It was only briefly produced, it seemed like. So it's a small field, but you've got some options. And for once, we actually have like an epilogue as we, discuss it in real time. So
we always got to wait a while to get an answer, if we get an answer at all. So
that was cool.
Love hearing back. Always love hearing what people get. And that LC 500, Sean, you're gonna love that.
That's gonna be great. That was just I believe that was just last week or 2 weeks ago. So that's glad to see it worked out. That is such a great car. It's gonna be it's a collector's car at this point.
It is. It's sublime, man. It is sublime. It just drives so well. It's a rocket.
All right. Well, if you enjoy the Autoblog podcast, that's 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get the show. Please send us your Spend My Monies at podcast@autoblog.com. Thanks for hanging out this week, John. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Be safe out there. See you next week.